So I just wanted to show you how you can use this observable to do this, but there is a better way of doing it, because we know that we are only going to get a single signal. In this case, a request is made, you only get a single response, and then you're calling these two. So there is something, a replacement for observable, which we can use, called single itself. Something named single is available as part of RxSwift, which makes it simpler. At least it is abstracting those on next and on completed within it itself. So I'm just replacing this with something called name a trait called, it's called a trait, RxSwift trait called single. So there is a little difference between creating a single and creating an observable, but you just need to say single here, single dot create, and I can maybe call this as single. And instead of on next and on completed, I just can get rid of this on completed, and I just can say, instead of on next, I just pass an enum called success, which will accept this tuple. I'll just try that. Instead of this, it's called single dot success, and here it should be single. Can just get rid of, maybe I'll just comment this and say single dot error, and then pass that error. So I just have this, I have this error, I can just pass that and then get rid of this error said as well. So we just managed to replace an observable with something named as single, which is very much useful when you are making HTTP request, because you are not expecting multiple results coming back from an HTTP result. So this is a good case where you can use a single trait in RxSwift scenario. So that's done now. You are done with the sign up scenario, where you get a request, you make a request, you got a response, you send it back as a single. So some changes are triggered right now here. So this is in the this is where we are making that call. In the auth interactor, I am using that protocol to make that sign up call, and you have the username, email, and password, but you don't have the success and the failure side. So what can we do here? Let's just get rid of this and then comment this part out, because this is where the handling is happening. So right now you see that this is returning a response type, so I can always map it. So because I'm making this sign up, this is actually returning me a type called single, so I can always do a map on that single. Let me just maybe format it properly. Email sign up dot map. Map gives me the same thing like status code and data, these two parameters. Result I'm not worried about right now, at least. So status code, data I received, so whatever passing was happening here, we need to do that right now. Instead of the success, I'm just getting this here. So on failure, on error, okay, let's handle this success cases. Error anyway, I'm not going to handle that part yet, because I'm just going to check for the status code. It can be 401 or 200, those two cases this layer is going to parse. So I'm just handling now mapping and getting only the success result. But if you want to, let's say, listen to error, then you can always subscribe and let's say you can listen to the on error part. What should you do on error is how you do it. So I'm just not handling that here. I'm just gonna do a map, and then okay, that's good, because interactor has to do two things here. It needs to responsibility of interactor here is to delegate the map service request call here, and it gives me a response, and the next step is that the interactor asks the parser to make to parse this response data using the status code. So that's the next step which the interactor can do right now. So let me just pull in this code here, the success case. Parsing. That's done. Failure, let's do that failure in a different way. So I have just captured that code right now. It's parsing the result. So I need to parse this parser here. Result of call to map is unused. So let's see. This is good. Parse sign up response is already there. It's just giving me some kind of error, unwanted one. It's actually not a issue. Should build fine. But then again, instead of this, you can do something where this parser can also be changed right now to a to the RxSwift version, where this whole closures are going to get replaced with something else. So let's start doing that. You go to the parse sign up response. Let me just go to the protocol version first. So here also it's a completion block with an auth result of single sign up response. So instead of this, again, let me import RxSwift here and then get rid of this closure. So I'm just gonna keep this. I'm gonna get rid of this closure, and instead of that, I'm gonna call sign single response. Similar thing. Status code and data you pass, and it gives you a single sign up token response. So now it is gonna throw me or ask me to implement this in my parser as well. So let me just get rid of this and then sign up token response. Already error, because this does not have now these completion blocks. Instead it is a single. So similar thing, we just need to return the single dot create. I'll just call this single disposable. So I need to return disposables dot create. This code maybe I'll use in case I need to return to some closures handling here. I'll just grab this whole thing, bring it inside the single. So now the return part is fine. Single, let's start replacing these completion blocks. So these are failure cases. If there is a name error, an email error, or password error. So all these cases, I can just say single dot error and then use that same sign up error. I'm just gonna use sign up error, custom error mostly. Same, instead of this email error, I just replace with this email. And finally, the error here gets replaced with password error. So we know that if there are error cases which happens, it comes through this. And if there's not right, it has to go inside completion failure. Instead, I just do this sign in failed. Just grab this one, sign in failed. Get rid of this completion. So we have gotten rid of these completions right now. Still gives me error. Return non-void. So this needs to return this similar thing. Create disposable, because this is expecting it to return a disposable object. So I'm just saying return this again here. So 2 places where you placed. Now again, one more error case we have. Let's get rid of that as well. Completion invalid JSON is the case here. So I think already have something for invalid JSON, but I'm just gonna use error, same thing, invalid JSON, so that my error handling becomes consistent. So I'm just using every time if I check for an error, I'm gonna check for this specific error and then grab that error message. And finally, we have this success case. So for that, let's do a single success and returning, so it does not need this. So this is also done. The parsing part is now returning a type single. So it's pretty simple, right? Let's go back and stub API. Oh, already I had a stub service, which also will need changes here. So single, what is that we have in auth API is still the same thing, has to be implemented even in my stub part. It does not do anything much here. Let's say you don't have a service connected to the internet, then at least you can use this stub service to test it locally. Import RxSwift. So stub is fine now. So it's only going to complain maybe at one place here, because parse is now a function call and it is returning this. Let me just bring this outside this, keep it commented. So now parse, I can say instead of map, I can say flat map here. Flat map, because this is transforming my current observable into a new observable. So this is returning a new observable type or a single type. So I need to keep it in a flat map. If it is map, it's just transforming my current observable to something else. Let's say if it was my so an example, let's say if it was a user which I had passed, if this function was returning a user and I had to transform it to, let's say, first name plus user dot last name, then this is where I'll use a map, where because this is my current observable, user observable, which is getting transformed into a name observable. Let's say first name and last name combined together to something like, let's say, something like this. So this is where I use a map. But when I am passing some variable from one function which is returned as an observable, and if I have to pass this to another function which is actually creating a new observable, then at that point I will use flat map latest. If you don't need to, you just need to listen to the last observable which it is returning and discard all the ones. But at least in this case, we know that it's only going to return one observable because we are using a single here. So I can call it flat map itself. So flat map, again, I can do a map to get this single token response, because this function is returning me a single sign up token response. So that's what I'm mapping to right now. and this, once I get that token, it's not a, yeah, it's that response. So what are we doing it doing with that? Once you get that result, at least in this case it was auth result token response, but in our case we replaced it with the token response. That's why this switch case is not needed in our case. So all that we can do is again, if you want to handle error type, again you'll have to go do a subscribe and capture this on error and handle that error here. But I'm not going to use that here. I'm just going to handle this. I don't need this token on subscription because I'm not using it. I'm just telling my user interface that my sign up process was successful. So as soon as I receive a token, that means my sign up process was successful. So that's what I'm gonna tell my the presenter, that this was successful. Again, this auth interactor is using a completion block here, which is returning again an auth result type of success and failure. So I can do something here where parse response, I can actually handle this parse response, but then I can do it somewhere else. So I'll just keep it here. Whatever I'm going to return here is going to be interesting. So I'm just gonna replace this with something called as, again, the same thing. Password. What did I get replaced? So this is my, again, I'm gonna give a single type string. This is my success message. If there is an error, it's going to capture somewhere else. So I'll show you how that is going to happen. So let me import RxSwift here as well. So this is my single, and this is mapping and doing nothing here. So I know I also need to create a single. Okay, I don't need to do, it's going to return a single string here, right? So all that I need to do is, I'm just going to get rid of all this. So this parse is sending me a token here, and if there is an error also, it throws that error as well, like in the parsable. If you see errors, it's just handling and sending it through the signal. Success, it's saying it's responding with this token model. So I don't need that token model here, at least, but in the login case you will see I'll be using that token model. At least here I am discarding it. So whatever I'm gonna do here is, I'm just gonna say, okay, let me just show you whatever I had done here. I'm saying user sign up successful is what I'm using here. So I can do the same thing here. All that I need to do here is, sorry, get rid of this now. Failure, I'm just ignoring. Success, so I do an auth sign up to the service I did, which is returning me status code and data, which I'm sending to a parser, and parser again is sending me the parsed value, which is a token, which I'm ignoring it here. I'm not accepting that value. Instead, I'm sending a string value saying user sign up is successful. I just send that. So that is what I'm sending it through this signal. That this is my return. So I just need, all I need to do is say return. That's it. Reintent, it's all good. So return. So you can see it's a chain right now. So this interactor sign up function is returning a single, but it is relying on the response of this sign up request made to the server, which in turn gives you a response to a status code of data and status code, which in turn is parsed using this parser, parse sign up response, and which in turn returns me a token which I'm ignoring, but I'm sending that successful response. Where is the error? So error is part of this response which I am sending, but I have not captured it here, but I'll be doing that in the presenter. So I'm returning this here. So this is well and good. Now if I compile, it's going to give me an error in presenter. So two places. One is this is return. This is giving me an error in the stub. So I just need to say single or maybe observable of because single I don't think I can say an empty. So that for that I need to make it as observable dot. I'm not sending anything. I'm just sending an empty and make it as single. So this will handle my return part in my stub. So this is fine. Stub has no implementation now, but because I made it of type single return, so I had to make it empty and make it as a single object to return it. So that's taken care right now. Now it is triggering some changes. So if you're not understanding this part, you need to check out the Viper tutorial on iOS Swift which I had made. So that tutorial I'll include it in the description section, all those tutorial episodes and the code base which is available in my Patreon site. So if you're interested in knowing how this is being done, you just go check that tutorial. If not, you just proceed with this. If you're already aware what is happening, just proceed with whatever is happening right now. So this is already giving me an error type because it was expecting this tuple type to be a closure. Instead, I have now made it as a single RxSwift type. So I need to make that changes here. So let's go to this use case. That's where it's happening. This is the use case. Sign up function, accepting username, email, password, and then a completion. So this is what we need to get rid of. This completion is going to get rid of, and then I'm going to make it as single string. And then I need to import RxSwift here then. That's done. So it should not give me that error right now. It's something else. This is already done. You modified it to a single return type. So you see it is started to give me error because in the presenter we had already taken care of the interactor side. Now in the presenter you see that it's using that closure to do all these things. Like I received a response which is nothing but that error, the string message. So once you have that response, we were using closures here again. Let's say on sign up, what should happen? No, not closures. At least we were using some protocols to update the view. So this is a regular Viper pattern approach where if you go to the view controller, let's say if I go to the sign up view controller is implementing something called as a sign up view, which is nothing but a representation of the view updates which need to happen from the presenter. So all those updates happening from the presenter comes through this protocol which we had defined, and it is implemented here. So all the update invalid state, update progress, update status, and everything is happening from the presenter through this using this protocol implementation. That's what is happening here. Self.view.update status. So presenter is already knowing about the view weak where reference through this protocol. So in builder, if you go and see builder in the presenter, I am setting the view controller using this. So the view controller is implementing my protocol. So I'm able to set this here, which is nothing but this view in my view controller. Sign up view. That's the pretty simplest way of implementing a Viper architecture where the V part is actually this protocol and not the view controller. So interesting things are going to start happening right now where I'm gonna change things around. So this sign up right now is not returning you a closure. Instead, I'll have to comment the whole thing. And now it's not going to give me any error because the sign up is now returning me a type single. So I need to accept that.